now Dan is going to ask a question about immigration.
Thanks, Ally. There are more than 150,000 undocumented immigrants living in Pennsylvania. In Congress, obviously, immigration reform has stalled, and immigrant rights activists in Pennsylvania would like the state to limit or eliminate its cooperation with secure communities, the non-mandatory ICE program that shares information with federal agents about undocumented immigrants arrested by local law enforcement. Do you support making this change, as some other states have done? Let's start with, I forget who went last. Let's start with the treasurer.
Okay. I do support, within the boundaries of the law, legally eliminating the circumstances with which civil authorities, local law enforcement, are compelled to go out and try to find immigrants for federal agencies. I think that it's not the most efficient use of resources. It damages law enforcement's relationships with local citizens and communities. And I am ardently pro-immigration. I believe there are two things that make America great. Our capacities for continuous improvement, because we get a lot wrong. It's the ability to correct it over time, and our diversity and our celebration of diversity. So we must have the American Dream Act. We must have a path to citizenship. We must celebrate diversity. We must recognize that cities like Philadelphia, what could make us stronger is if we had a greater inflow of highly productive immigrants. This is something to be celebrated, not merely tolerated. It's something that where we need to recognize there are still rivers of racism running through politics. And it's part of why to start at the beginning of the process, why it's so important that everybody in this room get everybody they know to become a super voter, which means somebody who votes in a non-presidential year primary, because we have to register your views on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary McGinty.
Thanks very much. I start where Rob was reflecting too. With a name like Katie McGinty, you might know there's some roots there, and especially roots 100% from Ireland. So I'm second generation in the United States, and I know the stories of my grandparents coming to this country and working hard. And you know what? They contributed to this country. They helped to make us strong. And you bet I'm going to stand up for those who are coming here to try to have their shot at realizing a dream. They're not looking for a handout. They're looking for the opportunity to contribute. And I would honor that. That is part of our secret sauce as a country and our future. In this program in particular, when so many states are now taking a critical eye to it, yes, as governor, I would take a critical eye to it as well. I'm very concerned that people who have done absolutely nothing wrong other than have a certain color of skin or a certain surname are going to be tracked down and hounded and hurt. And that's not what we want in a civil society, and I would want to take a critical look at that. I also think back to our discussion about nonviolent offenders. We've gotten so off the rails and throwing so much energy and money in the direction of people who are not violent, and that needs also to be critically examined. So yes, Dan, I would take a look at this, as New York and many other states have, to see if this continued cooperation is the right direction for us or not, and I'm skeptical that it is.
Thank you, Secretary. Congresswoman?
Yes, this starts with a personal story. I'm first generation on my mother's side. My mother came to this country, a refugee from the Holocaust, came alone when she was 16, never sure that there would be safety or security or even survival for that matter. And there's no question that the reason I have chosen to be in public service is that I keenly understand how great this country is, and having offered not only my mother but obviously millions more the opportunity and security to live out their lives. That's what I live with every day, and her stories about what she came from and what she was able to achieve and be in this country. So we need to not only respect our heritage, but we need to act on it for the current generation of immigrants who have come here for the same reasons: opportunity, security, and hope for themselves and their families. So I have been supportive of comprehensive immigration reform. I have voted for the DREAM Act so that young people whose parents brought them here as children are able to go to college and to work and come out of the shadows. These are millions of people who consider themselves Americans, and we need to get this right. I would support Dan's brought up about the fact of not going after people. There's some cooperation that happens with ICE. It does not mean that you have to go after people for minor offenses and to cooperate in that way. We should change federal law. That's not so easy, but certainly we've seen the mayor do it here. We've seen other states do it. We need to figure out how to be one country, and we certainly can start with one Pennsylvania. And as governor, that's what I'm going to strive to do.
Thank you. Auditor General.
I don't know the specifics of the legislation, but I know philosophically I embrace immigration. And my family is 4th or 5th generation in our country. It goes back to the 1870s, 1860s even. But I have to tell you, if you were to poll the agricultural industry in Pennsylvania, they will tell you they desperately need immigration to have competent, hardworking people here in Pennsylvania to support the agricultural industry. And again, I'm from Western Pennsylvania, and I think much of the immigration today is Hispanics in Pennsylvania. They are some of the hardest working people I have seen in a long time. And so we need to do everything within our culture, whether it's at the federal level or the state level, to embrace immigration.
Thank you. And since we're doing extremely well on time, thanks to the timekeeper for doing an excellent job,
And all of us.
I'm going to ask 2 follow-up questions, one on immigration and one on education, before I pass it on to Holly for the closing question. The question on immigration is, would you support the Pennsylvania DREAM Act, which would allow students who attend and graduate from Pennsylvania high schools, regardless of immigration status, to pay in-state tuition? Let's start with the treasurer.
Yes.
All right. Secretary McGinty.
You bet. That's a yes.
Congresswoman.
Yes, and of course, I've already supported it on the federal level, and of course, we should do this in Pennsylvania as well.
Auditor General.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, sorry, we're trying to ask tough questions up here, but
No, that wasn't a tough one.
okay, that is a tougher question. Would you support allowing undocumented immigrants to secure driver's licenses in Pennsylvania? Treasurer.
I'm inclined to, but I get annoyed with career politicians who pretend they know everything about everything. You know, I just want to know why there's any objection to that whatsoever. You know, so I want to understand what the issue is. But I think that it's very dangerous to have people not allowed to have some form of identification. So that's my initial impression.
Thank you, Secretary.
Yeah, I too would want to understand the pros and cons a little bit more, but my instinct is to enable people to participate in society, and that driver's license is a key part of it. However, to the extent that a driver's license continues to be part of what some people want before you're allowed to vote, I am opposed to that.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Actually, motor voters work pretty well, actually, so it's a good thing to do them together. But let me just say this, as I understand the issue is that, of course, immigrants who have been here a long time or even shorter, they need to be able to drive to get to work and support their families. So the practical answer is yes. The more difficult answer is that you are now encountering a government agency, and should they do something about it? And I think even there, I actually say that immigration really is a federal issue. I think that having, just as we said on the DREAM Act, we can, in the state, be able to make sure that everyone who lives here, who works here, is able to get a driver's license just as they're able to go to school without question. And that is an important part of their being productive citizens, non-citizens in this country. But again, the real answer here is that we've got to tackle this. We've got to be outspoken about getting immigration reform done and giving people a legal status so that they don't have to be afraid to interact with local, state, or federal agencies.
Thank you. Auditor General.
If they don't text while they're driving. In whatever way in which we can in a safe, oriented manner, incorporate immigrants into our society. We should be moving in that direction. Let's take, for instance, Social Security. If they're working and they're not paying into Social Security, but ultimately and eventually they'll be American citizens, there's something wrong there. There's a vacuum. So yes, we have to be as sensitive as we can and as practical as we can related to these issues.
All right, thank you.